Yeah, so I'm back. So last weekend I watched Disney's live action Little Mermaid, and while I'm not going to give you a full review on the movie, I'm going to go over some general things. Personally, I thought this was one of the more better live action remakes. Like, I did not like The Lion King for obvious reasons. It did not need to exist. I didn't like Aladdin, but I didn't think it was terrible. Mulan, I appreciated that they tried being different, but it backfired on them. But these live action remakes are usually a hit or miss, usually a miss. And The Little Mermaid's definitely more on the positive side of things. Like, they really respected the original material they were basing it off of, but also bringing in some new things in a more respectful way, if that makes sense. Now, of course, the big reason why I wanted to go watch this movie in the first place was Halle Bailey. I think she's a phenomenal actress and singer. I was really rooting for her in this film. I also came out really liking Jonah King, who plays Prince Eric. Obviously, all of us love Vanessa. While the film is a really good film in terms of live action remakes, we have been seeing the box office being, how do you say this, stagnant. I personally believe this film was gonna reach a billion because The Little Mermaid is arguably one of Disney's more popular films, and also just the hype surrounding the film and like even the controversy surrounding the film for stupid reasons would gonna get would gonna was gonna get the film into the $1 billion space. But now when you look at the box office, although it's not terrible, it's not looking too good for this movie. And it certainly does not help that all of June there's a movie coming out every month. And on June 16th, there's like three different movies that are major that are coming out. So like it really isn't helping The Little Mermaid, especially because already a week into it we have Spider-Verse and like it's taken away so many premium screens from The Little Mermaid. And it's really kind of hurting the box office for The Little Mermaid. I feel like if The Little Mermaid really had a month where it didn't have that much competition, it would do well because the premium screens are gone for Little Mermaid and they're just smaller theaters now. And obviously, it can still make some good money, but these are really small theaters. I'm talking like can fit like 30, 40 people at most. So like I I think that The Little Mermaid isn't gonna make a billion. It's potential out there. The potential is there, but I don't think it's gonna make a billion. Unfortunately, I think it's gonna probably make like the late 400 millions or early 500 millions in that little range, and that's unfortunate. But I think not only is the June landscape very competitive, like we have Spider Verse, Transformers, Flash, unfortunately, Elemental, all these films coming out in the month of June, and The Little Mermaid did what it could, and it did manage to take away the spot from Fast and Furious 6 or 10 or whatever it's on. So, that's going for it. And I do think that this film was the success that Disney was looking for. But there's also just more of an underlying issue as to why this film also could have bombed. Now, for years, audiences have been complaining that Disney is creatively bankrupt. And to an extent, I agree, they are creatively bankrupt, but also they are creating some original stories that people aren't tuning into, or they shift them to Disney Plus only for no one to watch them, and then a year later remove them for content removal, money, whatever. And throughout the years, obviously, people have complained about these live action remakes being an example of Disney just kind of running out of ideas and being creative. And they did claim all of this, but at the same time, these films were doing pretty well. Like, Lion King is one of the highest grossing films of all time. Shocking. The worst one managed to do that. Aladdin made a billion. Beauty and the Beast made a billion. I'm pretty sure a few other made a billion. But usually these films do well, and that's why Disney makes more of them. And the argument from the other side has always been, if you don't like these live action remakes, then don't show up for them. And it seems to me that the argument is finally hitting people's heads and no one is showing up to see these live action remakes. I think that The Little Mermaid could be one of the first wake up calls for Disney that maybe this live action thing needs to stop. And I think the wake up call started months ago when Pinocchio came out, and like Peter Pan and Wendy came out apparently like a month ago. And like these are two films that I saw make no noise, but somehow they ended up on the Nielsen charts, which I have so many opinions on Nielsen. But anyways, I think that The Little Mermaid being the first theatrical miss for live action remakes is kind of going to be the official first wake up call for Disney. And I know they think there's still potential out there in that Little Mermaid. It was just one miss in the entire canon. Truly think that Little Mermaid is an example of audiences showing Disney that they are kind of tired of it. Because I feel like when you get to a point where you're gonna remake Moana now, you think there's some kind of issue going on, right? Like Moana hasn't turned even 10 years old. And I think that like there's live action Snow White coming out, live action Hercules coming out, live action Lilo and Stitch, unfortunately. After that, you're kind of like in a dead end for live action remakes. Like, what are you gonna remake? Oliver and Co? No one's gonna watch that. Like, I would love for a live action Treasure Planet and Atlantis, but I don't think Disney's gonna touch those films, unfortunately. But Disney has kind of run out of popular animated films to remake. And there's rumors they're gonna do like Robin Hood and the Aristocrats and stuff like that. But like at the same time, do you really think that a potential box office flop like The Little Mermaid and then Snow White, I'm 100% guaranteeing you is probably gonna face the same problem as The Little Mermaid, where I don't think audiences are really begging to go see a live action Snow White film these days, especially because Snow White isn't one of the more popular princesses. So like, even worse scenario than Little Mermaid in my fucking opinion. But I think that they're gonna see some continuous flops, and then at that point they're gonna be like, live action remake, should we keep doing these? And like I said, like you're gonna hit a dead end. Like what are you gonna do next? Like live action Zootopia? Like no one wants to see that. So I want to say that this isn't a whole video on me attacking all these live action remakes. Obviously, I may have some personal opinions on some of these, but this is not to attack on these live action remakes, but give Disney an idea on what they should be doing if they want to revisit these old classic tales, but also be original and give audiences a reason to go to theaters. One of the more popular examples of Disney going into live action territory on their animated films have been Maleficent and Cruella. These two films followed some of Disney's most iconic villains and created these new stories within those worlds that aren't just live action reimaginings of Sleeping Beauty and 101 Dalmatians. Of these movies and franchises, if you're talking about Maleficent, and maybe if Cruella gets a sequel, have been probably one of my more favorite live action Disney movies from the past decade, especially Cruella. I think it is a really unique film for anything else Disney has ever released in their lifetime. And when you look at these like critic scores, they obviously usually don't favor these live action remakes for, obvious reasons. But when they talk about like Maleficent, kind of not Maleficent, but they still like Maleficent to an extent, and Cruella, they are usually really highly praised and by audiences as well. They like these movies and like they usually complain about the live action remakes, but they also appreciate these movies in particular. Why am I going off about Cruella and Maleficent? My personal opinion, I think the future of live action remakes shouldn't just be remaking these movies shot for shot or like remaking a movie and adding a few new characters to make it different or whatever. I think they should take the approach they did with Maleficent and Cruella if they really want to revisit all their animated movies and give us new stories within these worlds in a live action setting. Obviously, we don't have to like all of them because there's like a Lion King prequel based on Mufasa coming out next year, which I am 100% guaranteeing you now it is going to be a flop. And if it somehow doesn't, come back to me and comment down L or something. I don't know. I think Cruella and Maleficent really brought something new to the table for Disney where they can not exploit. That's a weird word to say for these characters, but like give new life to these stories they've created from their animated films and like bring something unique to them. Like I think Cruella and even to an extent Maleficent brought some darkness to their original stories, and Disney obviously is very well known for having subtle darkness in their movies. And like the possibilities are endless when you're trying to do these new stories within these universes. Like a Dr. Facilier origin movie would be awesome to watch, A Jafar origin story would be really cool to watch, A movie on Mother Gothel and why she doesn't want to age, Going through why maybe the kingdom exiles her. Whatever. I don't know the story. I'm not a producer yet. But these possibilities are very much endless. And I think Disney really needs to look at themselves and really think, instead of doing these shot-for-shot remakes, let's look at the things that are critically and audience-wise working. Or and I mean this with the utmost respect, let's just do pure original stories going forward. Because not only are there some fairy tales Disney never really touched on that they can be going over, even in the live action space, but there's new original stories they can be releasing into theaters, you know? A movie like um, Disney Plus's Flora and Ulysses, which was a pretty cute movie. I feel like 10 years ago would have done well in theaters, but nowadays, obviously, it won't do that well in theaters. But I think releasing it theatrically, giving it a lower budget, would have really helped Disney in the long run. But obviously, as we all know, we are living in the age of remakes, sequels, prequels, spin offs, shit like that. And obviously, Disney was kind of like the first people to do that, and they're going to continue being the leader in doing that shit. And I do think there should be a healthy amount of original stories and live action stories. But I personally think that taking the live action remakes at a more original, unique point is going to be a better choice than just doing another shot for shot remake. Because, like, there's no point in these movies existing if you're just going to do a shot for shot remake, in my opinion. And you could say that all movies wouldn't need to exist, but, you know, in particular, the ones that have already existed being remade into live action is kind of a, you know, given. So that was basically my rant, discussion, argument, whatever you want to call it, on what I think the future of live action remakes seems to be like, and what The Little Mermaid is an example of, and just, you know, how audiences may be reacting to these live action remakes now. But to be honest, I don't think that this would have happened if Disney didn't announce the live action Moana and Lilo and Stitch, because I feel like at that point that's when audiences were kind of like taking a step back and we're like, maybe we should stop supporting these movies so that Disney doesn't do stupid shit like this, you know? And I agree with them. I don't think we need to see live action Stitch or whitewash Nina, but like Nina. Why did I say Nina? Lilo's sister. Nor do we want to see live action remakes of movies we literally saw in theaters yesterday. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a live action Encanto already being discussed and like they're gonna announce it in like 6 years. Like, we don't want it, but we know Disney's considering it. Anyways, like I said, the rant, whatever, is over. Again, like I said, I do think Disney has potential to revisit their animated movies, but tell new stories within them. And I think that is the way to go rather than shot for shot remakes. Anyways, what is your opinion on the matter? Do you think Disney should keep doing these shot for shot live action remakes even if they're not really cracking in an audience anymore? Or do you agree with me? Like, do you think there should be more prequels or like new stories within these worlds, or do you just purely want pure original stories without any of existing characters being a part of them? Let me know in the comments. I'm very interested to see what people have to say on it. And with that being said, it's time to say goodbye. Bye.